Hello, hear ye. That's a gavel. You guys couldn't see it. Welcome to the Universal Court of Truth. Do you guys get it? Because we're talking about She-Hulk, and She-Hulk is a lawyer, and lawyers work in courtrooms. So normally,
Not all of them.
not all of them, but in this show there is a courtroom, and normally we're here and it's church and we preach our thoughts and opinions to you, but for this show we will instead be making the case about why we do or do not like it. I am one half of your host or fake lawyer or whatever we want to call it. We're having fun here. Hunter.
And I'm Mary. I'm an actual lawyer, but he's really taken it over for the court of truth. So.
Mary is, for those at home who didn't know this, Mary is like an actual lawyer. So this is, her area of expertise. It's very exciting.
It's a TV show, I don't know if it is.
No, I mean lawyering, not.
I mean, I'm also very tall. I'm not 6'7", but I'm like 6 foot, and this is technically green on the big screen, but that was also an accident though. So I'm kind of crushing it.
So Mary is a better lawyer than me, and also I think the judge, because maybe the most qualified, legally speaking.
I did just work for a judge.
There you have it, folks.
As of like 2 weeks ago. So.
I did mock trial once.
There you go. You can do that.
Yeah, so I think that really we have about the same level of, Yeah, okay. Episode 1 of Marvel She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Title definitely in existence when at the time that we're recording this. Mary, I know you're the judge, but and I know that as a judge you're not really technically supposed to be, biased, but what are your general thoughts, feelings, and opinions on this episode?
I mean, I love it, and I mean, it's not a secret. We've seen the first 4. Sometimes we do these with that. But I'll probably mention I like it as a whole, so that's what I'm talking about if I do. But I do, I really love it. This first episode, I feel like obviously it's very much like origin. Like it's, we see why she gets her powers. We see the whole training montage vibe. And I think they do a good job of like making it pretty concise, wrapping it up. I mean, it's not totally done, it never is. But I think given it was a half hour and you had Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk and you had a new character and you had a new concept, I think it did, it didn't feel too short when I watched it. Any of the times I watched it, it didn't feel too long by any means, obviously. But and it was funny and it was fun and it was just like it was fun without being like a completely different thing than anything we've seen. Like, not that would be bad, but it wasn't like we were watching some spin-off of Guardians of the Galaxy, or even like Ragnarok. Like it still felt like it was like around and like someone like, Mark fucking Ruffalo, Bruce Banner could just show up and it makes sense. And that's kind of the big theme of the show. And so I really like it. I love Tatiana Maslany. What a fun name.
Great name.
I mean, the CGI is not the best. If people can't get over that, that's like a them issue. I get it. Like, it's fair to criticize it, but like at a certain point, you just gotta move on because like it's really not a detriment to anything else. Yeah, big fan all around. It's my favorite show, and I've seen 4 episodes. To be fair, I don't know if I would have said that if I'd only seen this one. But it would be in the running. Like, I just like it. It's great.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with you on essentially all of that, especially that last part. Like, for me, having seen the first 4, like, I really do think that this is one of my favorite shows they've done, and I unless there's some like crazy, I mean, there's 9 episodes, so unless there's some crazy drop off in quality later, I do think that this has the potential to be like one of my favorite projects that the MCU has done, especially in recent memory. And I was not expecting that going in. Like I didn't think I would dislike it by any means. I just like She-Hulk has never been a character that was super near and dear to me. The concept sounded fun, but I've very much been super pumped for shows like Moon Knight and WandaVision was like a really cool concept. And I don't know, like going into it, I thought it would be fun, and then actually watching it, I am loving it so far, and they really just have nailed a very specific vibe that they're going for really, really well. And I don't know, like they're having fun with it, and I'm having fun with it, and like you said, like it's cool. It's been a minute since we've seen an MCU TV show that's this connected to like the wider MCU to a point where one of the original 6 Avengers is fully just a supporting character in the first episode here. And I don't like it. Just there's a lot of ways it could have gone wrong, and I think that it's been going really, really well so far. And this first episode, like it's the origin episode, so there are certain steps that it has to go through. But I think it handles it really well. It's interesting because I watched this episode a few times, and the first time I watched it, I did feel like that origin was a little bit rushed, and maybe it was just because I expected them to spend more time on it, and then it sort of just like happens, and then she is She-Hulk, and then she just like, I mean, But the second time I watched it, and then the third time I watched it, especially, it just I don't know, like they didn't need to spend more time on the origin than they did, and they just wanted to get right into the story they were telling, and I'm happy that that they did that. But that would be my opinion for this first episode. Is I think it's genuinely really funny too. Like the jokes really landed for me, whereas in some other projects they don't always land.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think just they do, and it's like the whole thing. All 4 are very funny. I think it gets funnier after the first one, but like they can mesh it all really well. I mean, they talked about how they use like Fleabag the show as inspiration, and obviously with the fourth wall break and whatnot, you can like see that. But I can get that vibe a lot from the comedy. I love Fleabag. It's probably second season of that show.
Oh, it's beautiful.
God tier. But like
perfect television.
I think they really successfully mesh like that vibe with we're in the MCU. Like how do we just kind of like combine those? And they do. I mean, I think usually when people are trying to combine things like that, especially in the MCU, like they don't always hit either one as well as you'd want. But I think this show, especially with, and I mean, you've seen the promos, like, even Daredevil showing up at some point. I don't know when, but like, Blanc showing up, Emil Blonsky showing up, like, they have the MCU available and ready to go. It's not just like Easter eggs and teases. They're like, okay, let's get just fucking long. So, like, that's really cool. And it's cool that they have that resource, I guess. I don't know. Like, I don't know who gave them permission to seem like they have more connections than everyone else. Maybe just because the nature of the show, probably. But I very much enjoy that even though it's a TV series for a character that, for the most part, isn't near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, like you said, they gave it the gambit, and they gave it the...
Yeah, and I think that this will be, especially a lot of the very good and valid points you just brought up, like, we'll be able to talk about those more in later episodes, and it's almost hard not to like dive into the what else we've seen right now. But I mean,
the trailers, like, giving so much away.
Oh yeah, no. I like just this first episode again being the origin episode. Like they did have to do certain things, but even I mean, again, literally Bruce Banner, they're continuing his plot line like from Endgame, like right off the bat in this episode. Like they show us how he fixes his arm. We can talk about it a little bit more in depth in a minute, but like just her origin literally involves like a Sicarian spaceship. like right off the bat, they're like, this is connected to the MCU hardcore. And I've never thought I would think of that as refreshing. I don't know if that's necessarily the right word. But I don't like, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, all these shows, they've been super, super cool, and I've been loving the fact that they stand alone so well. And obviously Ms. Marvel, like, was very much within the MCU, a lot of references there, but like her story was so separate from everything else until the stinger at the end. But yeah, just like this show is going to be a lot of potential fan service that isn't fan service. Like it just plays into the story, which I think is really exciting.
I don't know a better word for it than fan service.
Yeah, it's not. It's not. It doesn't exist to serve the fans.
Well,
But
people give it like a negative connotation, and I get that, and that's how it's usually used. I don't know a better word for it, but like I agree. Like it's literally like just stuff that sparks joy for MCU fans.
Yeah.
But it's like organic and it makes sense, and it's not just like, a bright light for a second to make people go, ooh, and then, yeah. So it actually, yeah, I agree. I mean, I wish there was a better term, or at least I wish fan service didn't automatically mean something negative. But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like if I'm addressing a jury and I'm making the case for this, like that's sort of what I'm saying is like, this is a comic book show, and I love comic books, which is partly why I'm watching it. And I would hope that most people watching it at least sort of like comic book characters and superheroes and all of that fun stuff. And sometimes it's just really good to have that, like, a comic book show be a comic book show and just like unabashedly exist in this universe that it exists in, and use that as a strength instead of like something that feels obligatory. Because I feel like sometimes the fatigue sets in for audiences when they feel like the references and the guest appearances and all of that stuff are like an obligatory, oh, they have to do this to remind you that they're in the universe. Whereas in She-Hulk, it very much is like, this is just part of Jen's story, that she is part of this world, and she, potentially is going to be a big player in it. And that's very exciting. But getting into the nitty-gritty breakdown of this episode, Jen's origin off the bat as it starts. Well, actually, let's get into something more important first. This episode does in fact answer a question that Marvel fans have been asking for over a decade now, which is the question of Steve Rogers' virginity. And we do.
That is great. That post credit scene and
Yeah.
how it cuts off at like just the right time.
Yeah. That's what I mean when I say this show is genuinely funny. Like there's a lot of projects that could have approached that joke and had it be super cringy, and in this it was like how genuine, like that scene almost felt like Tatiana really wanted the answer, not it was such a genuine, like, we need to know. But yeah, he did not die. He did not die a virgin. It was USO girl, potentially Peter Quill's grandma. Who's to say? Because it's the same actress. Sorry, that might have been flashing to Captain America: The First Avenger. There's like a quick scene where there's a girl who flirts with him while he's on the USO tour, and it's the same actress who plays Peter Quill's mom in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, which is just like a total.
No.
Yeah, it's a total coinky dink, but there's all these like fan jokes that Steve Rogers slept with Peter Quill's grandma, because they're like the timings sort of, yeah, so it could be. It's fun. If Peter Parker can be an Iron Man too, then why not?
Oh, yeah.
Bringing back all the retcons. Anyway, the origin is also slightly changed in this, but again, I think it works, and I think it works for like the speed with which they wanted to get that out of the way.
Yeah, and I it's one of those. I mean, it's not like Peter Parker, you know, freaking Batman. Like, think about those characters and their origin stories. If someone messed with those, people would lose their minds. And I mean, they do all the time. Where's Uncle Ben? Oh my God, blah, blah, blah.
They didn't even change Peter's origin in the MCU. They just didn't show it, and people still lost it.
I know, but I agree, because I mean, so in the comics, Bruce is like visiting her. I don't know why, to be honest, but and she's a DA like she is in this episode, and she's like working on trying to prosecute these like mafia dudes. Anyway, they're like following her, and there's like a car shootout, bang, bang, bang. Anyway, she gets shot, and then Bruce is for some reason like, oh man, don't have time to take her to a hospital, but I transfusion transfusion. Right. Yeah, and his blood gets into her blood or body, however exactly that works, and she comes and shoots her. Yeah, and here she cuts her arm, and there's blood everywhere, and he's bleeding because he has the inhibitor on, so that's why he doesn't turn when all this happens. That's how they really get you there. They're like, oh yeah, we can keep him human and he'll die. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but either way, blood gets into her system pretty quickly. She's a She-Hulk, yeah.
Yeah, I think in the comics too, it's just to make it like slightly more dramatic. The part of the issue is that she has like some super rare blood type, and one of the only other people in the world who they could get their blood on time is Bruce, because he's the cousin.
See that? That might be a retcon, because in the original one, like, that's not mentioned. Because I always thought that, and then I
read I always thought that too.
It wasn't in the original, but that could be like a whole retcon thing. But I mean, it is kind of talked about in this episode, because he's like, you and I have this super rare genetic makeup that can synthesize gamma radiation. So like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, because then if like his blood gets into anyone's blood, they turn into a Hulk.
Yeah. No, that
Stan did not turn into a Hulk when he drank the Edward Norton contaminated whatever brand of
whatever happened with that. Yeah, so it happens really fast. It's changed a little bit. This episode does confirm, Bruce confirms that it is a Sicarian ship, and he sort of casually is like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get to the bottom of that, but that's for, like a different show or whatever. And they kind of skip over that really quick. I mean, for breakdown purposes, it is worth. Wait, where'd you go? Did you just?
I have this like at my feet. Not on purpose, and I realized it's kind of sweet. Okay, but you can really see it.
No, that was really cool. But yes, for those who maybe forgot, Bruce mentions it again in this episode when he says that he spent time as the other guy for 2 whole years. That's when he was stuck on the planet Sakaar, as like a gladiator for, I almost said the Grand Inquisitor, which is Star Wars. The Grand Master, played by Jeff Goldblum. And yeah, and he's Hulk for 2 years, and that's based on the Planet Hulk comic book. And in the Planet Hulk comic book, they plant the seeds for like a lot of future storylines that kind of are like still part of the Hulk mythos to this day, including some like relatives that end up being alive on Sakaar for a little bit. So I don't know. We don't know what's going on.
We can talk about comics.
We can talk about comics. Yeah, he has a son called Scar, and Scar lives on like an exploded, dying Sakaar for a while after it goes kaboom. And he doesn't like his dad a lot at first, because he kind of blames him for a whole bunch of things, which, isn't great. Obviously, Sakaar did not explode in the MCU, so that we know of.
We just skipped over 5 years, and we're supposed to live in this whole, it's 2025 now, just don't pay attention to that. We'll somehow catch up and you won't notice, but could have.
I do like that that's like a thing that like in their universe, it's now 2025, 2026 in that area, but because of the blip, it wasn't like there were any crazy advancements in technology outside of what we already know. So it's like it's exactly the same as present day, but it's a different year.
I mean, it's like a very bold plot point to put into a very, capstone movie. Great, but then when you have indefinite things after, it's just not. You were really willing to.
You're really willing to be like, we have to commit to the bit for like the rest of time now. Like we don't know.
Phase 4 will mention it every once in a while. After that, we're just that's funny. In fact, they just never mention it again after like Wakanda Forever, literally after Phase. So that's where they draw the line. So
yeah. They absolutely don't. Like, it doesn't come up very often, and you see it on like posters for things in the background, but no one ever directly mentions. But anyway, so Sakaar, as far as we know, is still intact. Maybe not. But yeah, so it's very possible that Bruce has to hop on a ship and fly to the Sakaarian version of Maury and like find out if he's a dad. Who knows? But according to Bruce himself, he's still got to get to the bottom of it, and maybe we'll figure that out another time because it certainly does not resolve in this episode.
Definitely tease, obviously, the idea of mini Hulks. I mean, he'd like dramatically like incinerates their blood, and it's just, I mean, yeah, I think the wheels are turning. And I mean, it's been reported that eventually we might get a World War Hulks movie. So it makes sense that maybe we start seeing more Hulks. We have a second one now.
Yep. Well, a third if you count Abomination as like a Hulk type.
I didn't know if you can. I guess so. They just never refer to him,
Yeah, I get it's like a weird gray area because it's like it is Banner's blood, right? In the Incredible Hulk that mixed with the super soldier serum that kind of like turns him into Abomination.
Yeah, okay. It's a hard movie to really conjure up.
Yeah.
I guess I just the weird Stan Lee cameo reference, but yeah, okay, that's right. I always thought that, but they've been very liberal in She-Hulk saying a Hulk. Like in the first scene after she kind of does the practice closing argument,
yeah.
she does the fourth wall break. She says, "It's true, I'm a Hulk." We've never obviously called anyone a Hulk before. There's been B Hulk, so I mean, either way, like we kind of know things are like that are going to build up. How we will see, I don't know, but we've got a second officially named Hulk, potentially third of the species.
While we're on this track of conversation, one of the fun little notes that I took that I enjoyed throughout this episode is that Bruce does call himself. Well, he says that people have started to call him Smart Hulk, like in universe, which I thought was kind of fun, and goes along with the like a Hulk thing. But I wrote that down as soon as I heard it watching the episode through the first time because we call him Smart Hulk all the time, and like that's sort of what he's referred to in the comics. But it was kind of fun, like in universe MCU, hearing that that's what people refer to him now, like Smart Hulk, Professor Hulk, in there. I enjoyed it. Also, made a note of a similar thing. At one point, Bruce tells Jen to give her like classic savage Jen Walters look, and I thought that was fun because She-Hulk's original comic book was the Savage She-Hulk before they decided that she would have a functioning brain. So yeah, I thought that was like a fun little there's fun little like name Easter eggs throughout this, which I thought were really fun. But yeah, so oh yes, please.
They do mention the blip a bit in this. I mean, because Bruce is talking. I'm still thinking about the book. That his whole lab was built. And
no, this is exactly where I was just about to go.
Sad. Okay, it's just very sad, kind of like Tony always joked he'd come back. Or take it back one day, and then just silence. Like that wasn't a joke at all. It's just like, oh.
No, that was really sad. It was really sad. But I do really like this idea that like within the blip, everyone was obviously very depressed about recent world events. And I do like this idea that Tony would make like a vacation spot for him and Bruce, and like a place where Bruce can just go and relax. There was quite a bit of really interesting world building, I thought, going on like in that sequence of like, yeah, Tony. Also a good reminder that people always joke and say like, well, the Guardians are a family and the Avengers are like coworkers, and then or stuff like that. But a good reminder that the Avengers were still like hanging out and got along and were good friends and stuff like when they weren't on screen. So yeah, like hearing that the Science Bros, Bruce and Tony, kept hanging out was really fun.
I mean, that doesn't help the coworker thing.
No, but he does refer to him as a friend.
I keep bringing that.
Yeah, exactly. This is the perfect thing to have on hand. We should just like flash that every.
Well, I haven't figured out where to put it, so it's just like under my desk. So, yeah.
But yeah, so I really like the Hideaway, and like Bruce still has like one of Tony's helmets out, and they carved their names into the bar, and it was very sweet and cute, and I do like that he mentions like, yeah, Tony would just get drunk and complain about Steve, and I was like, yeah, that.
I know there's so many little, like, just, I don't know if the word's ground level, I guess, kind of, but there's so many of that, like, just like everyday goings on that, like, MCU fans want to, like, think about or talk about or, like, fan fiction about, like, just little shit like that, like, but it happens in She-Hulk, or it's mentioned in She-Hulk, and I just think that's fun. Like, I mean, normally you just don't actually get that. It's kind of like a tease from a director on the side for a unrelated project. Like, yeah, I think they were friends, so, but they're just so, like,
Yeah, no, I fully understand. And that's sort of what I meant when I said like world building a couple minutes ago, just in that sense of like, all these shows keep coming out and they keep saying, "Oh, well, this is going to show a corner of the MCU that you really haven't seen before." But the fun thing about this show, I feel like, is it's showing a corner of the MCU that we have seen before, but it's showing it from like different angles, which I think is cool, because normally it's just the world-ending events, and now we're like, oh, it's the same characters that you've been seeing. It's not like a different pocket of existence per se. It's just like this is what they're doing on their off days, and like this is what they're doing when Ultron's not attacking or something like that. And I think that's really fun, because like it is cool to see character like these characters that we see as gargantuan like titans in a fictional realm, and they're getting drunk and complaining about each other and like being bros and being depressed about the blip, and Tony's dealing with alcoholism, and apparently that got thrown out the window and no one cares anymore, and like that's like a fun that's a
yeah, I
fun.
never quite went there. Yeah, and we do get here pretty quickly, but more than we've ever obviously gotten, like, kind of the story behind Bruce becoming Smart Hulk or whatnot. Because obviously he just kind of popped up in Endgame like that, like taking selfies in a weird pancake restaurant. So,
yeah, they skipped the actual like explanation.
But yeah, it was the first time, and I guess it's the first time he's even been around. But like, they didn't like mess around with that. They gave you some answers, but like, what exactly? He just kind of did it in his free time during the blip with Tony's money.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that. I think that throughout this whole sequence, the chemistry between Mark Ruffalo and Tatiana Maslany is really great. Like they really do feel like squabbling family members for a lot of it, which I really liked.
Yeah, I think Mark Ruffalo, like, this was his best performance in the MCU, in my opinion. Like, he's done, obviously, it's a very different script and type of role than he's done before, but I don't know, I've never been, like, as happy with Mark Ruffalo on screen as I am in this one. And again, maybe it is because he's maybe a character I like more. I don't know, but I watched it and I was like, damn, Mark Ruffalo's doing great.
Yeah,
So,
well, I think they gave him a lot of time in this little episode alone. They gave him more time in this episode to really act through and process like the fact that he is Smart Hulk now than they actually did in Endgame. Where like, especially the whole bit, like one of the things I actually noted and wanted to talk about was, Jen becomes She-Hulk and just is She-Hulk. And that's like a big plot point in this episode, is the fact that for whatever reason, she, like, they say it's about blood or whatever, but like she can just synthesize with the gamma radiation, and she's just like, she is Jen. It's just Jen in her brain. And Bruce is sort of like, it took me like 15 years of like being half man and half monster, and like, you know, Jen has all those mean comments to him about like, yeah, you like had to hide on a beach and had no life for like most of your adult life, like this half of your adult life, and yada yada yada. And it was kind of cool to see someone talk about that and see Bruce like be jealous and like be sort of like, what the heck, man? Like, it took me forever to do this, and you just did it. And I thought that was like a cool exploration as well.
What I really like about that is when you get women superheroes, you got a lot of cranky, creepy people saying, "Oh, they haven't earned it. They haven't earned this shit." It's like no one else fucking earned shit. Like, so I kind of like that she literally just does it like this is, and that's great.
Yes.
Obviously, she's not like fully embraced the superhero life, but she's a Hulk, and that's what she is, and she's, I mean, in a lot of ways, better than Bruce in terms of that ability. And then I don't know, he was able to heal his arm with her, but and she's like, because I'm better.
Yeah.
He seems stronger, you know, still at least doing his clappy thing. That was cool though. But I do like how, I mean, she got to just be a normal person and in a comic book setting and like get her powers because she got her powers. You know, I appreciate that. I didn't have to be this whole journey because she's a woman. Not that it happens every time, but you got a lot of conversation. And the show is very aware of the MCU type crowd, or you know, people generally in that headspace, which I do appreciate. They are aware and they don't care, and they're willing to make fun of them. But yeah, so I like that of it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, all very good. And I also think that like from a storytelling perspective, it's better. Like I I don't know. Like we have seen like the person struggles with being a Hulk, you know, before. Like that, like we saw that with Bruce. We don't need to rehash it. Like we don't need to do it again. And now that we've already seen that and that type of story has been told, you know, more than once in media, it's actually really nice to see a character struggle with being a Hulk in like a different way. And that like Jen is a good lawyer. Like she's a good lawyer and that's what she wants to be. And you know, we see at the end of the episode, she kind of has like a with great power comes great responsibility type moment and like has to become a Hulk to save innocent lives. And you know, we're going to see how that affects her life in the future, but like Bruce says multiple times in this episode, it's probably not going to be the same again. Like she's probably not going to be just a lawyer. I mean, the trailers already show like she's got to do this whole like superhero division of lawyering and like all this stuff. And for me, it's super cool to see a character being like, yeah, okay, you're a Hulk now, so obviously your life is different. But it's cool that it's like, oh, it's thrown your life in a completely different direction than traditional storytelling would suggest that it would. And I think that that's really really cool. Um, yeah, so that's all great. I did notice specifically there was some Betty Ross erasure in this episode, and I'm here to say I will not stand for it.
Well, the erasure. I mean, they literally just never mentioned her ever again.
That's the erasure.
That's just like a. I mean, if you only count the Hulk's second appearance, which was in the Avengers, that's been 10 years that she's been erased, right?
Yes.
That's not even counting that 4-year gap between the Incredible.
This is more of me being petty than anything else because I always liked Betty Ross for whatever reason. But no, it was when she was like, "Well, how do you normally like stop being the Hulk?" And he has that really funny little bit where he's like, "Yeah, normally I just get knocked unconscious, or like Natasha would tell me a lullaby for a little bit." And I so badly, I was like, "Mention Betty." Like Betty also used to calm you down. You never talk about Betty anymore. Where is Betty? What is she doing? I hope she ended up with Doc Samson.
Part of me is, I don't want to say convinced, part of me has this theory that I don't think is real. So my normal type of theory, where they're going to retcon the Incredible Hulk as being in a different universe. I don't know exactly, because I mean, like Tony Stark makes his cameo at the end, and obviously General Ross like comes over. But I mean, if they wanted to, because if they wanted to get a good reaction in some future multiversal film, we got Ed Norton showing up. That's kind of funny. So part of me, I don't. Are they gonna do that? Probably not. But I think, what if they did? What if that's why they're not mentioning her? And so then when they later reveal it, they're like, ha ha, ha, gotcha. That was
possible.
evidence.
And we know that Betty exists like within the MCU multiverse at the very least because she was in an episode of What If. So like that, like we know that she was in one episode real quick and it like made my ear. It was great. That would be funny though in like Secret Wars. Like Robert Downey Jr. comes back as Tony Stark and the theater is going insane and then another portal opens and it's it's just Betty Ross from The Incredible Hulk walks out and I'm like the only guy in the theater like yes freaking out. Liv Tyler. Just like
There's so many people just wouldn't even.
it's like dead silent.
You know, this is not even on Disney Plus. Like, I mean, it will be eventually, but I mean, yeah, they would have no idea. Honestly, I wonder how many people wouldn't. Obviously, Emil Blonsky is going to show up somewhere down the line. We've seen it in trailers, but like, I wonder how many people wouldn't have recognized or didn't recognize him in the trailer. You know, like.
It's a good. I mean, especially because. I mean, Tim Roth is a human being who's aged. Not that he looks that different, but like he had like his hair's grayer now and stuff. Like I wonder if people saw that trailer and just like didn't. Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh, another scene. I just glanced at this in my notes. I really liked when she first like stumbles away from the car crash and goes to the bar and she's in the bathroom and like the other
Yeah.
Every time I watched that, I laughed so hard during that scene. I thought it was so perfect. The comedic timing was really really great. We see Titania for about.
First, someone was telling me something about how they really like Tatiana, and I was reading in this Titania for so long, and I'm like, so have you like even seen much of this person? Like, it took me like hours of a conversation to go, oh,
like D-list Marvel.
Yeah, we see Titania, and they do briefly mention. It's really brief. They don't really explain. Obviously, you know, she's kind of just there towards the end. That she's like an influencer or something. And I just so obviously she's different than the comics. If anyone really knows her comics very well, but which makes sense. So actually, her character's origin in the comics was the original Secret Wars back in 1984. Pretty sure Doctor Doom like fucking conjured her up, but like she has a whole backstory. She's like from I don't know Ohio or something, and she had shitty parents. I don't know. Different person, basically. I think shares a name, and she seems strong. But we don't see much of her.
I think Titania's always had the element of like a person who wanted. I could be off on this, but I feel like Titania's always had the element of like, oh, I have powers now. Let's use them to be famous, or like let's use them to like be like wanting badly to like have the powers to go out and do stuff with them, if that makes sense. So I feel like that element is still being carried over in the idea of like being an influencer in modern times, I suppose. But yeah, her I don't they obviously we see her for like 0.5 seconds in this episode. Jamila Jamil gets 1, 2, 3 words. Or 5, 6. It's like, who are you supposed to be, or something like that. But yeah, very, very fast. Pretty much all the footage that we saw in the trailers of Titania. But yeah, is an influencer, which I like. I mean, I think that's like a cool. I like that more than what's her face from the Spider-Man game and whatnot, who was like a similar concept but way more annoying. Yeah, so Titania though is like a classic She-Hulk. Like there's a long-standing rivalry there in the comics, which I imagine will probably play out differently in this show, just because the tone is a little bit different than like the early She-Hulk comics.
They don't have this history. I mean, like in the, I want to say it was the Cool Run. with She-Hulk, which is one that they've mentioned they faced a lot of tough, but I mean, there's a lot of loss, probably why. But Titania does show up like at the end, just to, like fight her. She just wants to beat her. That's kind of her whole thing. So they don't have that, you know, like relationship yet. So there's not like that long-standing rivals back together thing that I think, you know, since early on in the comics they've had. So that that'll be, especially if she's an influencer, not necessarily a super villain.
Yeah, and she also doesn't seem to be like that powerful because she does kind of just get taken out in like one solid punch, which could change. I mean, like again, there's a lot of episodes of this show, but at least in this sequence, I was kind of surprised because when she first popped up, I was like, oh well, we're gonna get like a cool 1v1 fight, and then it was the one punch, which ultimately I actually really like because I think it didn't need to be more than that, especially with the whole like her putting her shoes on afterwards and going back down to normal size and being like, I would like to make my closing argument. Just like, I still really, really am a lawyer first. And I liked that. Like, that was better, I think, than some big drawn out fight. So, with you being a lawyer, there's really not a lot of lawyering happening in this episode. But there's
like, it would be great to hear your insight about the show. I'm like, I really don't think that's gonna be the case. Like, it's not like
no, I mean, obviously
legal drama. You know, like I will say, she makes several quotes that are very accurate for a lot of lawyers. She mentions, I mean, going to school for a lot of years, 3 years, generally speaking, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Are these all things you relate to?
Like, law school is very expensive. Because there is this kind of recurring thing with her, like, why did I spend all this time to become a lawyer, I spent all this time in my career, spent all this time. And that's kind of a refreshing part of it, is she really does just want to, like, happen to be a Hulk, but, like, live her normal life. So she wants, in that final scene, to be the lawyer, like you said, but she's like, shit, I can't not let, you know, these people get whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, how's that going to look out for her TV show? Probably not great. But, I mean, the kind of struggle of a lawyer, depends on who you are, is interesting. I mean, they do obviously allude to a workplace with, like, douchey guys. That one guy, oh, he's great. But, like, that was funny, that opening scene, she's, like, given it, and technically as a viewer we don't know, it's not like a real situation yet. But and that guy's just like, smile more, dude.
Yeah. When I was first watching that, I didn't realize that character was supposed to be what he was, like the archetype, and I thought that the show was seriously being like, smile more, and I was like, whoa, like out the gate, that's crazy. And then when the camera like panned, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense, I get it now. He's like, it would come better for me. It's like, all right.
I mean, they are serious though. Like, I mean, he is an archetype. I mean, we haven't seen him that much in this episode, but I mean, I think, I mean, obviously the bar scene when she's like waiting for Bruce to come pick her up, that one's like pretty in your face. But even just the little things like the smile more and whatnot, like, I mean, they're making a point. Like, that's what she has to put up with. And and the whole thing, like when Bruce is trying to teach her how to control her anger, and she like goes into this thing like, I have to do so much more than you. And she even mentions the workplace. And that's not a lawyer thing, but like in a professional workplace, that's very much still an issue. I mean, there's lots of issues, but like just kind of the general like condescending tone, and women not necessarily getting like treated this way. Like, you know, I mean, that is what it is. That's not good. It should be changed. But I mean, a lot of, I think especially, well, I wasn't trying to say it was good. I just mean like.
No, I know. Yeah.
You know, and most things like to avoid it. Like, they don't want to really talk about like real problems, like women's or whatever, you know. So I thought it was nice that they let the writers of She-Hulk obviously put their own experiences in and be a bit more with it, because that's just reality. For so many people are going to be like, oh, they're putting this in there, they hate men, or what the fuck ever MCU. It's like, that's just how women really live life. Like, it's not forced for this. Like, it is, it's accurate. But one of her statements that I really, really liked, I think it was the same time she was giving this speech of I have to control my anger way more than you, it was definitely Bruce said something like, if I don't, I'm going to get called emotional or whatever, or quite literally get murdered.
Yeah.
Accurate. And that seems dramatic to some people, but like, I mean,
well, for me, like, well, not for me, but you know, that sounds dramatic, but I feel like in recent years, more than ever, like we're seeing actual news stories about like women being killed for no reason. Like it's true. Like I think that almost would have sounded more dramatic like 10 years ago than it does today. And I mean, I could be completely like
well,
off
I mean,
base.
I'm sure it is in the news more, but I think it's just in the news more. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I'm aware
No,
of
no,
it.
and that's what
But
I'm.
it is
It's
something
always been true. It's always been true. I'm just like, it's good
talked about.
that people are talking about it now, and I feel like it's something that is finally like actually being talked about. And again, like I could be off with that, but that's why like when she said it, I like it's true. I can't even deny it because you can pull up like a million different articles from the past week, which is terrible. It's terrible, but like that's why it's good to talk about.
One of my favorite lines because it's delivered like, very like matter of factly. Because for so many people it is like, and I mean, no matter what, like you're gonna get kind of a creepy crowd of dudes. No offense, but usually women aren't like yeah, people being called She-Hulk. You know, like there's no motivation there, but like, um, they're gonna complain about everything because that's what they want to do. But like statements like that are gonna get attention from certain people. But I think a lot of people, including me, like obviously really appreciate that. Like Marvel wouldn't be like, oh, I don't want to mention that. Like, please say that. So, and I'm sure there are plenty of things in every situation, every project Marvel's like, but this is the first time with certain things like that they've really gone for, and I think it's really relevant. Obviously, not just to like a female-led project, but one that has woman like in the name. Like, I mean, like Miss Marvel, I guess that's fair too, you know. But like,
Well, yeah.
She-Hulk, like it's almost like a walking billboard name,
I
and
also
like
think
general character, yeah.
it's a little different in the sense that Miss Marvel is about like a teenager, whereas She-Hulk is about like a woman in the workplace,
Yeah.
and you know it's a different vibe. There's different talking points for sure.
No, for sure. Yeah, I agree. It's very much. I really like how Kamala was handled and written, and I think it was great. And part of me, when I was watching She-Hulk, was like, why do I like this better? I'm like, oh, I just like because this is an adult woman, like they're writing, so it's very different. And
Yeah.
they, you know, I think obviously, you know, I'm an adult, so I relate to some of that more, and I like the more mature humor. But I have nothing wrong with how they've handled, like, especially Kamala. I really like, obviously, Miss Marvel's great. But first time, and I guess people could disagree, you know, but I felt like this show was the first time, like, a main female character, like, felt, like, real. And part of it is WandaVision, for example, she's not going to feel real. She's got a lot going on. But
Yeah, she's the Scarlet Witch. She has, you know, like fake kids, real kids, and some other timelines.
I'm sure that's part of it. But I have to like Wanda, Scarlet Witch, and Multiverse Madness, like my favorite villain by far. Like I fucking loved it. So it's not that other female characters haven't been written well. Obviously, there are a lot fewer examples, but I do feel like they have been realistic and like very authentic and genuine. And you can tell, you know, like real women who are just being allowed to write about one character, and I do really like that. I mean, I know that Marvel doesn't always attract, you know, predominantly female demographic. But if more people were to get interested in Marvel, like I could see a lot of people really getting into this show for some of those reasons first before, and it'd be confusing a little bit, but like, I think it's enjoyable enough and the character's relatable enough that you're gonna like it. And then maybe you're like, what's the hope? Should I watch 2008's The Incredible Hulk? But like, yes, no, I mean, up to you.
Well,
I think that
I agree with you in that, like, I think I'm happy to see this show, like, saying things and speaking to a demographic that isn't always spoken to, like, within this fandom and within, like, this form of media. And at the same time, I agree. Like, I think this show is just genuinely well done enough and fun enough that, like, everyone can watch it and enjoy it. I joked, by the time this comes out, the embargo will be lifted, so it's fine. But I joked when we were, like, coming up with quotes to use for the site for the embargo that, like, I wanted my quote to be She-Hulk checks off enough boxes that Warner Bros. Discovery wouldn't know which half of their streaming service to put it on. Um, because like, and I stand, but I'm not even going to explain that. Anyone who gets that gets it. But essentially just to say, like, it's not it's not like geared. I mean, it is geared towards, like, a certain demographic, but, like, it's just such a good show overall. Like, I feel like anyone can watch it, and hopefully people can watch it and, like, get something from it too. Like, I feel like the wrong people who aren't going to get something from it are not going to get something from it, and you're going to hear about it, and it just is what it is. But
I mean, yeah, there's people.
yeah,
But and it's not even like getting something from it as much as it's just like acknowledging it. Like just the fact
yeah,
that they will have it be a matter of fact statement, like the one we kind of just talked about, or just like we're going to see a full show of her as a main character. I'm sure other things are going to come up. We've seen different trailers, like she's been on Tinder. That was part of the promotional material they put She-Hulk on Tinder. That's funny. So I'm a firm believer in if you should probably do more, but like bare minimum, if you make characters, like whether it's a woman, whether it's a person of color, whatever, and you just make them real people and put them in the spotlight and give them a good story, like people can relate to it. People can like that. It does, like, there's just no difficulty to that. I think, there, hateful people are going to be hateful people. But I think your point, and I think obviously we agree on the show is just fucking good. And
yeah.
so there's kind of like, for certain people, this red herring of, oh, it's a woman show. And it's just not. Like, I guess I'm a woman saying I like the woman aspects of it, but it's just funny. And it's just good. And you've got Mark Ruffalo for, like, he's like half this episode.
I would also like to say, like, you got Mark Ruffalo, and he's great. Like, he's great. But I think that it's a testament to how good Tatiana Maslany is in this.
Yeah,
That,
you
like,
feel it. Like, yeah.
yeah, she's, like, going toe to toe with Mark Ruffalo in this, who's like this. He's been a fan favorite actor forever, and she, like, he's just as fun and likable, and I'm just as excited to, like, see her on the screen as I am the Hulk that I've been watching for however many years, right? And I think that's huge. Like, and Marvel's been good at finding people lately who can stand toe to toe with, like, their OG characters and be just as good and interesting, and that's been really fun to see. But yeah, like,
series really well. I feel like they've, like, to be fair, all the series are kind of like hint hint. Eventually, they're probably going to show up in a movie. I get that, but like, I feel like when we've talked about a lot of some of the newer MCU actors, whatnot, a lot of it's in the series. And I don't know if that's just been okay. Here's my thing. I think Phase 4 is like their experimental phase and their, like, identity crisis phase. Obviously, they planned it out, so it's a little. But I think all of it was so different, and I think people complain they don't know what's going on or how it's connected. Nothing feels the same. I think that they just kind of were like, let's put enough things out there, so that when we do tie things together in phases 5 and 6, we have the bedrock of it, even if it was a little messy. I feel like that is what Phase 4 is like. I don't know where that went started from, but yes, whatever.
no, I feel like, at least where I kind of thought that was going, is that they've been using. I mean, obviously, like, their movies have introduced new characters like Eternals, and we got America Chavez and Doctor Strange and all that stuff. But, like, the major characters that they know are going to be, like, main characters of the MCU going forward, or, like, main characters of certain sections of the MCU going forward. Moon Knight. And all that fun stuff. But, like, they've been.
I know we will, but
I mean, at this point, it's very up in the air. But even like Kate Bishop, right? Like I think this is a really good like comparison in that like they introduced Kate Bishop in a show that also has Hawkeye. I mean, like Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye isn't necessarily the same level of loved as like Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, but like you get what I'm saying. It's like they've been using TV shows to introduce them. I think it's great, mostly because I think that TV storytelling format fits a lot of comic book stuff better, just in the sense that like comic books are TV. You know what I'm saying? Like it's episodic in the same way that like comic books are told in issues. So I think that's fun and it gives us more time with the characters. And I do like this concept of we're gonna give She-Hulk an entire season of television and then you will see her in the movies with other characters. Like I think that that's fun because now when we do see her in an Avengers movie, like we're gonna really know this character without having to like spend 6+ years giving like a film trilogy like that that sort of thing.
I mean, you get a sense of people or characters' personalities through obviously what they're in. And I mean, before Phase 4, you didn't have any series, so everyone had a movie, even if it was a solo movie. And you don't get so much range, I think, with style and like time and personality and story with that kind of 2-ish hour block window. That's just kind of, I mean, there's patterns. Like, that's how movies work. It's fine to admit that. So I think when we do get it, like She-Hulk, and like you mentioned kind of at the beginning, like this feels like it's from the comics. Like it feels, and we've seen 4, but like it feels like it's a comic run. Like that you can't get that in a movie. You don't really get that even in like a Infinity Saga. It doesn't feel that way, and this does. So you have a completely different vibe and like personality, not just with the character, but with kind of what she represents in the MCU. Like completely different feeling with it. And so yeah, when you put her in something later on, it's kind of cool because like you know her so much, but you know her in a very particular way and with a bit more depth and kind of texture, I think, than you can get in a lot of other ways. And at least a variety. I mean, nothing else. Like we're getting a variety of character origins and so it's just it's not gonna feel as stale, ideally. Like when things come together, it's a lot more exciting. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel like we've mostly really talked about this episode pretty well. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover, Judge Mary?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm really excited for like the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be really fun to hop on here and talk about them. Before we go though, um as someone who works within the legal system, uh if you don't mind, what exactly is a paralegal? Because Jen Walters has a paralegal who is also her best friend in this show, Nikki. And I know that like I know generally speaking what a paralegal sort of is, but like there's the line I was thinking about this earlier when we talked about the douchey guy because he's like, "Oh, you're going to trust a paralegal over another lawyer?" So like, just from that, I feel like a general audience who doesn't know what a paralegal is would be like, "Okay, so I guess they rank below like a normal lawyer." But yeah, just for the sake of this show going forward, what's a paralegal? What do they do?
So I've never had or like really worked with a paralegal just in my limited time. Like I in the past, like when I was interning, like they had them, but I don't constantly talk to paralegal. Lawyers have a Juris Doctor degree or a law school for it. That's why you're a lawyer. You have to be hard in a state. You have to take the bar exam to do a lot of things. Most things, not necessarily everything. But paralegals, they also have a system of training and education. It's kind of a license too. You can just say you're a paralegal. Like you have to, it's not law school, but I mean, it's
Right.
kind of just yeah. And from experience and from people I do know, like what they are unsung heroes. They can do basically everything. They just don't have the credentials to like actually technically legally practice law. But like just beacons of like research and like knowledge on how to just work a court system at an administrative level. Like I mean,
Right.
from experience, like they could be lawyers. They just don't the official kind of licensing, and they've had a different kind of training that's more geared to assisting lawyers. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate the explanation. But yeah, just because, Nikki is in it and is very clearly like an important part of what Jen is doing at work, and like they're best friends, and Nikki's there like helping Jen all the time. And I was like, I don't feel like a paralegal is like an assistant. Like it feels like it's more than that. But like it but
Yeah,
yeah.
they do a lot and they know a lot. Yeah. So I mean, douchey guy with being douchey guy situation. I mean, yes, obviously paralegals don't have the same credentials or whatever the lawyer, but that scene was not meant to obviously disparage paralegals. Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that, um before we close out, put an end to the Universal Court of Truth. Mary, I feel like we more or less just made a case for why we do like it. I mean, I can do like a quick little thing if we want. We really don't have to, but Judge Mary, how do you judge this episode? Is it what is it? What does it get?
I really like it. I think it's a great start to what has the potential to be a great series. It is difficult, I think, probably for both of us to completely divorce it from the other 3 episodes we've seen. Not because they changed the game that much, but like it doubles down on what I'm saying. So I think if you're thinking, I did like it, but they're being a little cocky about that because you see them do they're good. It's good. Like it's a great show. I love it. I think it was appropriately quick origin for the show, answered enough questions for me, gave us enough Mark Ruffalo for now, and
Yeah, it is a surprisingly bingeable TV show. Like I can picture when it's done, like I could easily just sit and binge the whole
yeah.
season, whereas other shows have been a little heavier than that. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending the Universal Court of Truth. I have been one half of your lawyer host person, Hunter.
I'm married.
Barry. We will see you guys. Session is adjourned. We will see you next week when we resume. That's the right word, right?
So
Okay, bye.